14 months.
Okay, so why don't we begin? Why don't we tell a little about yourself, Reena?
A journey of so many years. Um, I think in the years, one of the things that gets better is your perspective. So with this perspective, I'm proud to say that, well, my inheritance is on a bookshelf, fills a bookshelf on my bookcase of books that my dad wrote. The biggest blessing, and everything is two-sided, is the home I came from, Sidney Greenberg, Rabbi Sidney Greenberg, who was devoted all those years ago to modern, joyous, modern, inclusive Judaism. 33 books came from him, from that commitment, including articles, and he was a legend. Um, but there were 3 kids, 3 girls, and a wife who needed to do everything perfectly, and I was born a little bit alternative, lo shigrati, as we say. And in growing up, I wasn't getting what I needed from the household um, to nourish my soul. The physical nourishment was all cared for. In fact, the way that I really pleased my mom was by eating. And this pleasure turned into a curse, turned into a severe eating disorder, a combination of compulsive overeating, bulimia, tinges of anorexia, but mainly compulsive overeating. And I nearly took my own life at age 30. And I see it as addiction. It's nothing. I work with alcoholics and drug addicts today, but disordered eating or eating disorders is an addiction, another branch, another type of addiction. And that's what my journey turned into. I needed something that my soul wasn't getting, and addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol or food, it helps us numb the pain. It's just a symptom of a hungry soul.
What do you mean by a hungry soul?
Everyone needs to be validated. Every child needs to have their needs met, whatever they are, and needs for an environment to be nourishing them, to be giving them what they need. And every child, all kids need some things, and then there are other dimensions of what it is to be a child. You have 3 children, it's 3 different answers.
And how did your father play into your life in terms of getting you to the point where you are now and being a therapist?
Well, actually, I think I had to go down before I could go up. My mom did the best she could, and it wasn't quite enough. And I, like other addicts, continued to make not wise decisions, choices in my life. And once I hit rock bottom, and I knew that there was no place else to go, I surrendered and said, okay, show me the way. And when I was able to be open to learning a different way, then I was really able to hearing all the things my dad had said that I couldn't hear. I had been blocked. But he also, you asked about a therapist, I'll get to that. He also gave me unconditional love. I don't remember when he got angry at me. And that, I think, is the basic thing that we all need. And certainly a kid who's acting out, and I did in my own quiet ways, it's hard to give unconditional love, but he always did. And it says in Tehillim Lamed, Afachta mispedi lemacholi. You turn my mourning into a dance. I was born a dancer. I still dance 66 years later. And all that I went through had to go somewhere. I couldn't just say thank you and that's it. I had to give it on. And what it's turned into is a blend of psychotherapy and the model of addictions and the Reena Keren method of what do we do with food. Because food isn't drugs and alcohol, and food is something that we can turn from something toxic into something blessed.
So you use standard therapeutic methods, and at the same time you have your own particular method, and specifically in regard to food,
Yeah.
and how it plays into your therapy. for the healing process.
Yes, and my own blend of psychotherapy and the 12-step program of addiction, because to weave them in, 12-step meetings are crucial, and they're not therapy. Therapy is not 12 steps. My work here blends them in, but addicts also need to go to those meetings. And yes, I have my own method vis-a-vis eating and food. I say there is no forbidden food. There is no forbidden food. It's not that someone eats ice cream and they're okay and they get thin and the fat people can't eat ice cream. What's forbidden is to use food to try to deal with our feelings. It never works. And my work is to separate food and feelings and to deal with them each in a different way. I talk about clean eating. I can make a choice from an emotionally clean place, and it could be a salad or it could be ice cream. But if I'm emotionally clean, either one is okay for now. You know, the illusion is that we would always want ice cream. You know, it's not true. Our bodies every day, they need the good stuff, and sometimes our soul needs the other. But if we're clean, you know, the drug and alcohol, they can just and many alcoholics and drug addicts sit on this very space. It's simpler. It's simpler. It's simpler than the food addiction. People die from the food addiction like they die of drugs and alcohol as well. And part of also my work, Steve, is creating a network of professionals. You know, all of it is to keep a person from going to the hospital or inpatient. I spend a lot of time and energy working with the family, the parents, the doctor, if there is a nutritionist, someone, a coach for the Machon Kosher, for the gym. Because there's not one voice and there's not one thing that helps a person recover their lives.
So you have this holistic approach.
But very grounded in traditional work.
Right, and the ability to bring in the other players in the person's life that contributes towards them being grounded, like the other people you just previously mentioned. And when all of that comes into play and the person is sitting here, what is it that you're able to get that makes you so unique in the work that you particularly do, that people want to come here and be healed, or help get to a place where they can heal themselves with your therapy?
You know, I think, Steve, when I've heard a young man, an alcoholic who hasn't had a drink in 5 years, was trying to tell me this morning, he said, Reena, you say so many important things. And he said, if you want to write your book, just take my notes, because I ask people to come here with a notebook and use it at home. And that's part of what makes it work, the work that they do. But I think if you really want to boil it down, Steve, it's the caring. The caring. Because for 34 years, I was in the prison of an addiction. And I was suffering, and every day, at least for, from the time I was, I don't even know when. The suffering was at young age. The efforts to get out, 12, 11, 13. Let this be the day. Let this be the day. We call it white knuckling. You squeeze so hard, white knuckling. And that's what an addict who wants to recover does also. But let this be the day that I can have a clean day with food. And I will go to almost any length. I'm very not orthodox. It doesn't matter what somebody pays me, because it's not about the money, although I do need to live. It's not about that. And it's combining and finding a way to speak to whoever is here. Is the work spiritual? Yes, but if someone is not hearing on that plane, so it doesn't resonate so much on that plane. But there is that element. Yair Kaspi, in his book, Lidrosh Elohim, Seeking God, it's a secular book. he said in a lecture that he gave at Beit Tfilah, my Jewish home here, you can't be liberated from the inner Pharaoh unless you realize that there's a greater, higher being, a power greater than Pharaoh. And that is one of the tenets of the 12-step program. I realize I can't do this. I can't do this alone. The Hasidim dance like this, and in the same way, I need some help. And they talk about whether the man created God or God created man. We're all here. We're both here, mankind and God.
Do you ever do any long distance work with people on the phone or Skype or any of?
It's so interesting that you ask. When I heard about Skype sessions, I thought it was horrible. Horrible. How could you take this, the crystals and the energy and the purple, how could you bring it to Skype? And I guess like every technological invention, then, I get to be more friendly with it. And I've had a few, not new clients, but clients who moved back to the States or to an Anglo country, although I work with Israelis. So, and I could see, and this morning session was on Skype because it was a storm. And it was asking me if he could avoid traveling from another city to Tel Aviv in a storm. I said, sure. So the answer is yes. And the irony is that it's very focused. Although when I work, I am focused, but it's even more focused than very focused. So the answer is yes.
So really, if somebody let's say is in another country, and you haven't previously had him as a client,
yes,
that's a possibility.
Yes.
If they're so drawn to speak with you.
And first sessions are always an hour and a half minimum. What I bring is, my age. You know my age in a minute because it's 34 years before awakening, and 32 years since. And I bring all of that here because it all matters. And it's psychotherapy plus 12 steps plus, we say in Hebrew, al-basari. The same client insists on calling me Dr. Keren. I said, I'm not a doctor. He said, you're my doctor. Because I have a doctorate in life. I went to the edge, Steve. I went to the edge. And life is clear at the edge. It's clear. I also do a lot of reading and studying of the teachers who've done work with death and dying, like Kubler-Ross and Stephen Levine and Jack Kornfeld, and that work. If someone would offer me a course, people have suggested that I study this or that. If there were a course in that, I'd be right there taking it, because the perspective of knowing that it's just for today, how do we want to live our lives, it's very powerful. And I use very varied techniques in sessions. I spoke about writing, but I want the work to work. Affirmations. I am creating abundance. I am creating sobriety. I am creating, and lots of techniques that make the 1 hour here or the 1 hour on Skype more rich, more relevant. What is 1 hour in a week? Or even if someone would choose to come twice, it's nothing in the sea. And people today really want quick answers, and Google and life in the tech age allows that to happen for some things, but it can't happen for other things. I didn't get this way overnight, so I can't imagine, or anyone, getting better overnight or finding other ways. Tools for recovery are really important in my work. And there are some basic tools for anyone's survival kit, but there are some specific ones for each person, like each child. Can't sell answers, and I don't sell my answers. I try to hold up the mirror there, the mirror, and let them hear themselves. And because it's about listening. It's about listening. And normative people, when it comes to food, if we're going to talk about food, normative people pay attention, say, okay, I'm hungry for this, or I'm not hungry for that. People have used food, and it's about relearning that. And You know, I spent the first 34 years of my life on diets. Today, I don't diet. I eat in a way that's right for me, each meal, each day. And I'm thinner. I'm very healthy. I eat a lot of times in a day. I'm thinner than any formal diet ever brought me, with all its yeses and nos. And after a few weeks or days or months, I'd fall off the wagon also. But when we eat in sync with ourselves, as I call it.
So, from what you're saying, I'm getting a sense of you're really teaching somebody two things that I understand. One, to be in the present, and to take responsibility for oneself.
That's it. That's it, Steve. The opposite of addiction, I mean, an addict doesn't take responsibility. Nothing is his fault. It's everyone else's fault. And that's, you know, I can eat food and throw it up. I can use drugs and try to live well, you can't. And being responsible, taking responsibility. And a lot of behavior modification. Wow, you came on time today. Kol hakavod. Lots of behavior modification reinforcement. And the other thing that you said, taking responsibility and presence. I put on Facebook yesterday on my mindfulness page a cartoon where one little hamster, or whatever the animal was saying, asked his friend, "What's your favorite day?" And he said, "Today. Today is always my favorite day of the week." Most people are always looking back or looking forward. Today. I'd rather be doing nothing than having you interview me, Stephen, in the purples of my home and the energy.
So the link from the unconditional love of your father, the missteps in the relationship with your mother, put you in a situation where you spiraled out of yourself for whatever variety of personal reasons, to one day find that you're at the end, and in that some kind of, in a sense, ness or something happened where you decided that I'm not going any further. This is it. I can't do it anymore.
I can't. I just want to say that the unconditional love from my dad, I wasn't in touch with it then. I was in touch with just suffering and pain. And by the way, all of this is relevant to someone without an addiction. It's about taking back our life. It's about well-being. So the article on my website, reenakeren.com, called Tikkun. About I had to marry the same man twice, and how I was unable to function at times, even though it was just food. I couldn't stand up and help my daughter in the next room who had fallen off her bed because I was in a sea of sandwiches, literally. My health got so bad, the marriage got so bad, the addiction was so bad. Plus I had done so much work in 12-step and therapy. Somehow it all came together and I hit the bottom, but with a lot of input of all the work I had done. And one night, it was almost a mythical story. My ex-husband wasn't there. We were moving to a big apartment the next day, and he went to do some things in the new apartment. Things were the worst that they had been. We were given this apartment. And in the middle of the night, I woke up, and I thought I saw a light. There were white cabinets in front of me. I thought I saw a candle, a flame. And called my late sister, Shira, in New York, and said, "Shira, I'm done with the marriage, I'm going. I see a light." And it was amazing. Half hour she paid, a half hour I paid. I never went back to sleep again. And the movers came at 6 a.m. to move us. And on the way to a new apartment for a family, 4 people, I had to get breakfast. There was nothing in the new place. And on the way there, I walked into the Makolet on En Gedi Street in Jerusalem. What would I like to eat? And people who are in the prison of a food addiction, they don't have to say those words. And I realized I could buy whatever I wanted. Of course, I got food for the family. And that meal, by the way, that stack of sandwiches some years before, that's really what I chose. But I remember I could taste it today, and I've eaten it many times since. There is no forbidden food. What's forbidden is for me to abuse myself, is to continue the abuse, the non-answering of my soul needs, to continue that. But we have a choice. Addicts, clean addicts, we have choices. And I chose that day, the day of awakening, of recovery. And is it smooth flowing? No. An addict is always an addict. Clean, just for today.
So, who would generally come to you? In other words, I guess what somebody who's an addict doesn't necessarily, first of all, see themselves as an addiction.
Number one step in the 12 steps
Right.
is denial.
Right.
Denial.
So how did it get to you? I mean, at what point along that, I mean, if somebody is listening to this or watching this now, and they see in themselves that they have a problem, maybe not so severe, but something that they need to get clear on, you can help them and provide them with...
If they're ready, if they are ready. Someone was sent to me, an alcoholic, by another alcoholic, and he was so not ready. I will stay with the person until they realize they're not ready. My situation was so severe, and most people don't get to that place of having to choose between living and dying. Wherever a person is, I meet them.
How did you get back to yourself? In other words, did you have a specific person that was able to help you, or how? I mean, that your journey is interesting. I mean, you one day wake up and you realize, wow, this is it.
Well, there were lots of therapists on the way. There are lots of 12-step meetings on the way. I hundreds of times I sat on the front row and listened to my dad preach. He's funny. He was funny and he was eloquent, and I brought 12-step materials to him when I first met the program. And I guess if I think about that therapist and where I was, first of all, I don't think it's an accident that happened to me in Israel. It's a hard country, but it's the land of promise. Lots of miracles here. And I just had to do something with all that I got. The therapist, he was a recovering drug addict, came from California. He was in my life at that time. Maybe it's not an accident. He combines, still today, Torah and therapy. I would sit there writing. I asked my clients to write. I would sit there writing like it was, and then read it again and again. And 12-step in Jerusalem and the stones, and because my soul really was born in Jerusalem. My dad brought us here. I don't want to say what year. When I was 6 years old, I was 55. Doesn't matter. I'm proud of it. Proud of my 66 years. We stayed on kibbutz near Etzion. He wrote his first book. And those are the childhood memories that I really have that were sweet. Dancing Rikudei Am, Israeli folk dancing, since I was 8. So if you do the math, it's a lot of years. And it all went into the tapestry of my own journey, and I had to give it back. I have to do I think sometimes my work is like teaching. It's therapy, but it's also teaching what I know, teaching what I've learned. When I get the chance to really pull together all of my writing and write that first book, it's really going to be a collection of wisdom about life, not about me or my journey. No one needs, like the stones. My dad, blessed memory, had 3 daughters. We were 3 girls. And 3 girls went into different forms of mental health. And one clinical psychologist and one hospice social worker and me. My next card's going to be different, but I'm not sure. I would love to have the courage to write psycho-spiritual therapy, but that's only one thing that it is. It could be, so many names, and it really depends, Steve, and the quiet music is always playing, what someone needs. Because straight therapy isn't enough, straight talking. I love workshops because it's different modalities and also uses the body. Most people live alongside of their bodies or next to their bodies or far away. It's fun to live in your body and it also keeps you healthy, healthier than if you didn't. Yeah,
Is there anything else you would like to share that that's especially
a book's worth.
I'm sure,
right.
but in the short time we have, is there anything, especially in this world right now, where outwardly anyway, it's pretty chaotic, globally speaking. And we're kind of used to that kind of world living here. Is there anything that you can share about that would be helpful?
I think it's a great question. You're a great interviewer. I think I would want to say, and I've never said this before, that the most important things in our lives still haven't changed. They will never be ready to be dealt with by Google. And that's the most important things need time, need hashka'a, I don't even know how to say that in English, to investment. Whether it's an addiction or a relationship, mother, child, partners, sisters, people in the kihila. Things of importance take time, and we can't Google them. And I insist with clients, you need to talk to me, hear my voice, and I hear your voice when you want to break, make, change. We need the soul. There's no way we're going to find a way to circumvent the soul.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.